Good evening, everyone. So tonight we're going to be reading again from Neil Gaiman's Norse Mythology. We are going to be doing the story of Loki's children, so the Children of Loki. This story starts to tie a lot into other stories that we will read. It has a very big hand in the stories of Ragnarok. For Tyr followers, it is a big part of this is one of the biggest stories for Tyr. So there's a lot we can learn from this. We'll talk about some of the things a little bit at the end. There'll be some questions for you guys to consider, as always. So without further ado, The Children of Loki from Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. Loki was handsome, and he knew it. People wanted to like him. They wanted to believe him. But he was undependable and self-centered at best, mischievous or evil at worst. He married a woman named Sigyn, who had been happy and beautiful when Loki courted and married her, but now always looked like she was expecting bad news. She bore him a son, Narfi, and shortly after, another son, Vali. Sometimes Loki would vanish for long periods of time and not return. And then Sigyn would look like she was expecting the very worst news of all. But always Loki would come back to her, looking shifty and guilty, and also as if he were very proud of himself indeed. 3 times he went away. 3 times he eventually returned. The 3rd time Loki returned to Asgard, Odin called Loki to him. "I have dreamed a dream. You have children." "I have a son, Narfi. Good boy, although I must confess that he does not always listen to his father, and another son, Vali, obedient and restrained." "Not them. You have 3 other children, Loki. You have been sneaking off to spend your days and your nights in the land of the frost giants with Angerboda, the giantess, and she has borne you 3 children. I have seen them in the eye of my mind as I sleep, and my visions tell me that they will be the greatest foes of the gods in the time that is to come." Loki said nothing. He tried to look ashamed, and succeeded simply in looking pleased with himself. Odin called the gods to him, with Tyr and Thor at their head, and he told them that they would be journeying far into Jotunheim, to Giant Land, to bring Loki's children, to Asgard. The gods traveled into the land of the giants, battling many dangers, until they reached Angerboda's keep. She was not expecting them, and she had left her children playing together in the great hall. The gods were shocked when they saw Loki and Angerboda's children. They saw what Loki and Angerboda's children were, but they did not deter them. They seized the children and they bound them, and they carried the oldest between them, tied to the stripped trunk of a pine tree, and they muzzled the second child with a muzzle made from knotted willow, and they put a rope around its neck and a leash, while the 3rd child walked beside them, gloomy and disturbing. Those on the right side of the 3 children saw a beautiful young girl, while those on the left tried not to look at her, for they saw a dead girl, her skin and flesh rotted black, walking in their midst. "Have you noticed something?" Thor asked Tyr on the 3rd day of their journey back through the land of the frost giants. They had camped for a night in a small clearing, and Tyr was scratching the furry neck of Loki's 2nd child with his huge right hand. "What?" "They're not following us, the giants. Not even the creature's mother has come after us. It's as if they want us to take Loki's children out of Jotunheim." "That is foolish talk," said Tyr, but as he said it, even though the fire was warm, he shivered. 2 more days of hard traveling, and they were in Odin's hall. "These are the children of Loki," said Tyr shortly. The first of Loki's children was tied to a pine tree, and was now longer than the pine tree it was tied to. It was called Jormungandr, and it was a serpent. "It has grown many feet in the days we have carried it back," said Tyr. "Careful, it can spit burning black venom. It spat its poison at me, but it missed. That's why we tied its head to the tree like that." "It is a child. It is still growing. We will send it where it can harm nobody." Odin took the serpent to the shore of the sea that lies beyond all lands, the sea that circles Midgard, and there on the shore he freed Jormungandr, and watched it slither and slip beneath the waves, and swim away in loops and curls. Odin watched it with his one eye until it was lost on the horizon, and he wondered if he had done the right thing. He did not know. He had done as his dreams had told him, but dreams know more than they reveal, and even to the wisest gods. The serpent would grow beneath the gray waters of the world ocean, grow until it encircled the earth. Folk would call Jormungandr the Midgard serpent. Odin returned to the great hall, and he ordered Loki's daughter to step forward. He stared at the girl. On the right side of her face, her cheek was pink and white. Her eye was the green of Loki's eyes. Her lips were full and carmine. And on the left side of her face, the skin was blotched and striated, swollen in the bruises of death. Her sightless eye rotted and pale. Her lipless mouth wizened and stretched over the skull-brown teeth. "What do they call you, girl?" "They call me Hel, if it pleases you, Allfather." "You are a polite child. I'll give you that." Hel said nothing, only looked at him with her single green eye, sharp as an ice chip, her pallid eye dull and spoiled and dead. He saw no fear in her. "Are you alive, or are you a corpse?" "I am only myself, Hel, daughter of Angerboda and of Loki. And I like the dead best of all. They are simple things, and they talk to me with respect. The living look at me with revulsion." Odin contemplated the girl, and he remembered his dreams. Then Odin said, "This child will be the ruler of the deepest of the dark places, and ruler of the dead of all the 9 worlds. She will be the queen of those poor souls who die in unworthy ways, of disease or of old age, of accidents or in childbirth. Warriors who die in battle will always come to us here in Valhalla, but the dead who die in other ways will be her folk, to attend to her in her darkness." For the first time since she had been taken from her mother, the girl Hel smiled with half a mouth. Odin took Hel down to the lightless world, and he showed her the immense hall in which she would receive her subjects, and watched as she named her possessions. "I will call my bowl Hunger." She picked up a knife. "This is called Famine, and my bed is called Sickbed." That was 2 of Loki's children with Angerboda dealt with then. 1 in the ocean, 1 to the darkness beneath the earth. But what to do with the 3rd? When they had brought the 3rd and smallest of Loki's children back from the land of the giants, it had been puppy-sized, and Tyr had scratched its neck and its head, and played with it, removing its willow muzzle first. It was a wolf cub, gray and black, with eyes the color of dark amber. The wolf cub ate its meat raw, but it spoke as a man would speak, in the language of the men and the gods, and it was proud. The little beast was called Fenrir. It was growing fast. One day it was the size of a wolf, the next the size of a cave bear, and then the size of a great elk. The gods were intimidated by it, all except Tyr. He still played with it and romped with it, and he alone fed the wolf its meat each day. And each day the beast ate more than the day before, and each day it grew, and it became fiercer and stronger. Odin watched the wolf child grow with foreboding, for in his dreams the wolf had been there at the end of everything, and the last things Odin had seen in any of his dreams of the future were the topaz eyes and sharp white teeth of Fenrir's wolf. The gods had a council, and resolved at that council that they would bind Fenrir. They crafted heavy chains and shackles in the forges of the gods, and they carried the shackles to Fenrir. "Here," said the gods, as if suggesting a new game. "You have grown so fast, Fenrir. It is time to test your strength. We have here the heaviest chains and shackles. Do you think you can break them?" "I think I can. Bind me," said Fenrir's wolf. The gods wrapped the huge chains around Fenrir and shackled his paws. He waited motionless while they did this. The gods smiled at each other as they chained the enormous wolf. "Now!" shouted Thor. Fenrir strained and stretched the muscles of his legs, and the chains snapped like dry twigs. The great wolf howled to the moon, a howl of triumph and joy. "I broke the chains! Do not forget this!" "We will not forget," said the gods. The next day, Tyr went to take the wolf his meat. "I broke the fetters. I broke them easily." "You did," said Tyr. "Do you think they'll test me again? I grow, and I grow stronger with every day." "They will test you again. I would wager my right hand on it." The wolf was still growing, and the gods were in the smithies, forging a new set of chains. Each link in the chains was too heavy for a normal man to lift. The metal of the chains was the strongest metal that the gods could find. Iron from the earth, mixed with iron that had fallen from the sky. They called these chains Dromi. The gods hauled the chains to where Fenrir slept. The wolf opened his eyes. "Again?" he said. "If you can escape from these chains," said the gods, "then your renown and strength will be known to all worlds. Glory will be yours. If chains like this cannot hold you, then your strength will be greater than that of any of the gods or the giants." Fenrir nodded at this and looked at the chains called Dromi, bigger than any chains he had ever seen, stronger than the strongest of bonds. "There is no glory without danger. I believe I can break these bindings. Chain me up." They chained him. The great wolf stretched and strained, but the chains held. The gods looked at each other, and there was the beginning of triumph in their eyes. But now the huge wolf began to twist and to writhe, to kick out his legs and strain in every muscle and every sinew. His eyes flashed and his teeth flashed and his jaws foamed. He growled as he writhed. He struggled with all his might. The gods moved back involuntarily, and it was good that they did so, for the chains fractured and then broke with such violence that pieces were thrown far into the air. And for years to come, the gods would find lumps of shattered shackles embedded in the huge trees or on the side of the mountain. "Yes!" shouted Fenrir, and howled in his victory like a wolf and like a man. The gods who had watched the struggle did not seem, the wolf observed, to delight in his victory. Not even Tyr. Fenrir, Loki's child, brooded on this and on other matters. And Fenrir's wolf grew hungrier and hungrier with every day that passed. Odin brooded, and he pondered, and he thought. All the wisdom of Mimir's well was his, and the wisdom he had gained from hanging from the world tree, a sacrifice to himself. At last he called the light elf Skirnir, Frey's messenger, to his side, and he described the chain called Gleipnir. Skirnir rode his horse across the rainbow bridge to Svartalfheim, with the instructions to the dwarves for how to create a chain unlike anything ever made before. The dwarves listened to Skirnir describe the commission, and they shivered, and they named their price. Skirnir agreed, as he had been instructed to do by Odin. Although the dwarves' price was high, the dwarves gathered the ingredients they would need to make Gleipnir. These were the 6 things the dwarves gathered. For firstly, the footsteps of a cat. For secondly, the beard of a woman. For thirdly, the roots of a mountain. For fourthly, the sinews of a bear. For fifthly, the breath of a fish. For sixthly, and lastly, the spittle of a bird. Each of these things was used to make Gleipnir. You say you have not seen these things? Of course you have not. The dwarves used them in their crafting. When the dwarves had finished their crafting, they gave Skirnir a wooden box. Inside the box was something that looked like a long silken ribbon, smooth and soft to the touch. It was almost transparent and weighed next to nothing. Skirnir rode back to Asgard with his box at his side. He arrived late in the evening, after the sun had set. He showed the gods what he had brought back from the workshop of the dwarves, and they were amazed to see it. The gods went together to the shores of the Black Lake, and they called Fenrir by name. He came at a run, as a dog will come when it's called, and the gods marveled to see how big he was and how powerful. "What's happening?" asked the wolf. "We have obtained the strongest bond of all. Not even you will be able to break it." The wolf puffed himself up. "I can burst any chains," he told them proudly. Odin opened up his hand to Gleipnir, to display Gleipnir. It shimmered in the moonlight. That is nothing." The gods pulled on it to show him how strong it was. "We cannot break it," they told him. The wolf squinted at the silken band that they held between them, glimmering like a snail's trail or the moonlight at the waves. He turned away, uninterested. "No. Bring me real chains, real fetters, heavy ones, huge ones, and let me show my strength." "This is Gleipnir. It is stronger than any chains or fetters. Are you scared, Fenrir?" said Odin. "Scared? Not at all. But what happens if I break a thin ribbon like that? Do you think I will get renown and fame? That people will gather together and say, 'Do you know how strong and powerful Fenrir's wolf is? He is so powerful, he broke a silken ribbon.' There will be no glory for me in breaking Gleipnir." "You are scared," said Odin. The great beast sniffed the air. "I scent treachery and trickery," said the wolf, his amber eyes flashing in the moonlight. And although I think your Gleipnir may only be a ribbon, I will not consent to be tied up by it. You who broke the strongest, biggest chains there ever were, you are scared by this band? Said Thor. I am scared of nothing. I think it is rather that you little creatures are scared of me. Odin scratched his bearded chin. You are not stupid, Fenrir. There is no treachery here, but I understand your reluctance. It would take a brave warrior to consent to be tied up with bonds he could not break. I assure you, as the father of the gods, that if you cannot break a band like this, a veritable silken ribbon, as you say, then we gods will have no reason to be afraid of you, and we will set you free and let you go on your way. A long growl from the wolf. You lie, Allfather. You lie in a way that some folk breathe. If you were to tie me up in bonds and I could not escape from them, then I do not believe you would free me. I think that you would leave me here. I think you plan to abandon me and to betray me. I do not consent to have that ribbon placed on me. Fine words. And brave words. Words to cover your fear at being proved a coward, Fenris Wolf. You are afraid to be tied with this silken ribbon. No need for more explanations. The wolf's tongue lolled from its mouth, and he laughed then, showing sharp teeth, each the size of a man's arm. Rather than question my courage, I challenge you to prove there is no treachery planned. You can tie me up if one of you will place his hand in my mouth. I will gently close my teeth upon it, but I will not bite down. If there is no treachery afoot, I will open my mouth when I have escaped the ribbon or when you have freed me, and his hand will be unharmed. There. I swear if I have a hand in my mouth, you can tie me with your ribbon. So, whose hand will it be? The gods looked at each other. Baldur looked at Thor. Heimdall looked at Odin. Honir looked at Frey, but none of them made a move. Then Tyr, Odin's son, sighed and stepped forward and raised his right hand. I will put my hand in your mouth, Fenrir. Fenrir lay on his side, and Tyr put his right hand into Fenrir's mouth, just as he had done when Fenrir was a puppy and they had played together. Fenrir closed his teeth gently until they held Tyr's hand at the wrist without breaking the skin, and he closed his eyes. The gods bound him with Gleipnir. Shimmering snail's trail wrapped the enormous wolf, tying his legs, rendering him immobile. There, said Odin. Now, Fenris Wolf, break your bonds. Show us how powerful you are. The wolf stretched and struggled. It pushed and strained every nerve and muscle to snap the ribbon that bound it. But with every single task, with every struggle, the task seemed harder, and with every strain, the glimmering ribbon became stronger. At first, the gods snickered. Then the gods chuckled. Finally, when they were certain the beast had been immobilized, and they thought that they were in no danger, the gods laughed. Only Tyr was silent. He did not laugh. He could feel the sharpness of Fenris Wolf's teeth against his wrist, the wetness and warmth of Fenris Wolf's tongue against his palm and his fingers. Fenrir stopped struggling. He lay there unmoving. If the gods were going to free him, they would do it now. But the gods only laughed harder. Thor's booming guffaws, each louder than a thunderclap, mingled with Odin's dry laughter and Baldur's bell-like laughter. Fenrir looked at Tyr. Tyr looked at him bravely, and then Tyr closed his eyes and nodded. "Do it," he whispered. Fenrir bit down on Tyr's wrist. Tyr made no sound. He simply wrapped his left hand around the stump of his right and squeezed it as hard as he could to slow the spurt of blood to an ooze. Fenrir watched the gods take one end of Gleipnir and thread it through a stone as big as a mountain and fasten it under the ground. Then he watched as they took another rock and used it to hammer the stone deeper into the ground than the deepest ocean. "Treacherous Odin! If you had not lied to me, I would have been a friend to the gods. But your fear has betrayed you. I will kill you. Father of the gods, I will wait until the end of all things, and I will eat the sun and I will eat the moon. But I will take the most pleasure in killing you." The gods were careful not to get within reach of Fenrir's jaws, but as they were driving the rock deeper, Fenrir twisted and snapped at them. The god nearest him, with presence of mind, thrust his sword into the roof of Fenrir's wolf's mouth. The hilt of the sword jammed in the wolf's lower jaw, wedging the jaw open and preventing it from ever closing. The wolf growled inarticulately, and saliva poured from its mouth, forming a river. If you did not know it was a wolf, you might have thought it was a small mountain, with a river flowing from a cave mouth. The gods left that place where the river of saliva flowed down into the dark lake, and they did not speak, but once they were far enough away, they laughed some more, and clapped each other on the back, and smiled huge smiles of those who believed they had done something very clever indeed. Tyr did not smile. He did not laugh. He bound the stump of his wrist tightly with a cloth, and he walked beside the gods back to Asgard and kept his own counsel. These, then, were the children of Loki. So, the children of Loki. We have Hel, ruler of the underworld. We have Jormungandr, the world serpent, or the Midgard serpent. And then we have Fenrir. The questions that I want you to ponder and I want you to think about as you re-listen to the story and go read it on your own, and as you're reading other stories, is think about how Odin treated the children of Loki simply because they were the children of Loki and because of what he had seen. Think about that, and think about how his choice of how to treat them affected the future of the gods and affects the way that the world is as a whole. I want you to think about what we can learn from the treatment of Fenrir by Odin and by the gods, and how you feel that that actually contributes to Ragnarok and the way that Ragnarok turns out. And finally, I want you to think about Tyr's sacrifice. Both in the way that it went down and what it tells you about Tyr and what it tells you about the honor of Tyr. Now, for anyone who does not know, this is a pendant that I wear for Tyr. Tyr is one of my patrons. And there is a lot we can see about Tyr's character and what Tyr stands for and what we can learn from him in the actions that he takes involving Fenrir and the binding of Fenrir. So I want you guys to think about that. Drop some answers down in the comments. If you're not following me on TikTok, please follow me on TikTok. Normally these are live stream. There are varying reasons why this one is not. And feel free to reach out to me, either here on YouTube or in TikTok, or in Discord, Miss_Chivius. It is going to be attached to my, I will have it in my description down below. We'll put it in the description down below. You can reach out to me on Discord. You can reach out to me on TikTok. Right? Well, I hope you all have a blessed Yule, as we are now in the 3rd day of Yule. Stay safe in the wild hunt. And I look forward to speaking with you all through comments. Have a blessed evening.